Yeah.
Right.
That is my favorite watch by far. If I could murder someone for it, I would. Unfortunately, I haven't found a victim yet.
Right.
So if you would like to volunteer yourself, please let me know.
Hello, welcome to the latest episode of MyWatches podcast, episode 21, with two guests here. Casey.
Hi.
From Casey and John podcast, who no longer posted for some reason.
Right.
And also the Medic Blog. And as usual, Woody at Watch Addict WT, Instagram handle and everything will be here, right?
Can I ask a question before we begin? Like, is he still a guest?
Actually,
I'm not sure anymore.
If someone lives in your house,
he's a parasite.
yeah, right? It's like,
I like that.
that's not a guest anymore.
That's going on my Instagram profile, Parasite one. MyWatches podcast.
The MyWatches podcast parasite.
Yeah, I like that.
Alright, so today we have a very impromptu episode as well, because we are here to film Splitting Seconds if you have not checked it out. Alright, so the topic for today is what are your, in terms of how does your 2023 watch outlook be like, right, for the year? And how you're feeling in terms of your watch journey and watch collecting journey, right?
Right.
Before that, first thing first, a very quick wristwatch check. I have my Omega Speedmaster Hasselblad 1861.
Also known as the fake Moonswatch. I'm wearing the real Moonswatch, the Jupiter edition.
Yeah, I'm wearing a new vintage GLC memo box. I'm not going to attempt pronouncing the brand name because Casey will just
That
something
one.
like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Alright, so maybe I'll go first.
Yeah,
sure.
Alright, so in terms of my watch, I mean like my outlook for watch for 2023 in terms of my watch collecting, I'm facing a little bit of watch fatigue, right? So I'm not sure if you guys are facing that as well. I think it's been a very strong like past 2 years for me in terms of purchases and advancing in terms of collecting things that I wouldn't thought I would have been able to get, right? And then now it's like a big question mark for me, like what's next?
Right.
And then in terms of getting bored of certain part of my collections as well, and in a way I'm a little bit lost in terms of where I want to be. And then start looking into things that, stuff like precious metal and stuff that probably add some spice towards the collection.
Jewelry.
So yeah.
Oh, will this come up before or after Splitting Seconds? Spoiler alert!
Probably before, so
Yeah.
stay tuned to find out what happens in there. Right? Yeah, so I'm not sure if you guys are feeling the same as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Why don't you?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I think you guys may have noticed, may or may not, but my watch profile is not even active anymore. We've kind of stopped or slowed down, at least the podcasting as well. The Matic as a whole has kind of slowed down because I think I can
Because
speak.
Marshall's lazy. Right.
Firstly, yes, he's a lazy dude, but also all of us are kind of experiencing watch fatigue because, I mean, if you've been in the hobby for a while, you kind of see the same things being regurgitated in a way at more and more expensive price points. That seems to be happening a lot. The hype market has gone insane with prices for highly sought watches going through the roof. Impossible to find at retail. You're buying at scalped prices, which are insane. And then also, you know, the fact that I guess I can speak for me at least, like now I'm married and then like I have a house to take care of, blah blah blah. There's a lot, I feel like I have a lot less time to indulge in all this sort of things. And I've ended up, this is super uncle, but I've ended up buying like furniture. Like, should I buy furniture or should I buy a watch? Should I buy a nice coffee table or a cheaper coffee table and a watch? And I end up buying a nice coffee table instead. And then it's just like your priorities kind of shift.
Yeah.
I'm also very happy with where my collection is as it stands. I don't know. I if you ask me what my watch plans are for the coming year, if I see something interesting that I like, that's at a reasonable price and that you can buy without waiting in a queue, I might get that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I honestly have nothing planned.
Yeah.
I still love watches. I'm still here talking about watches because it's a part of my life.
Yeah.
But I don't look to acquire anything.
I think I'll echo a lot of what Casey has just said. I've also been on a bit of a pathway like what James was doing in the past year, and I think this is the first time even on my Instagram profile that I've decided not to post for quite a while already. It's by comparison to what I was doing almost daily, right? It's like almost 2 weeks without hardly anything. And it's just a reassessment of how I want to do this more sustainably as well, because you want to enjoy doing it, making the content that you'd still be happy to make, and you don't feel obligated to make that as well, right? And I think even from the watch acquisition perspective, I also kind of reached the same plateau that both of you have. It's like I don't really have anything on the radar. I do have one I've already pre-booked for 2023 though. But having said that, that's the one and only I have in mind. And if you ask me to put up a list of what I'm looking for, I actually will give you a blank piece of paper back for now.
Sure.
Because there's really nothing that I'm looking actively to acquire. And I'm kind of hoping that something just speaks to me. You know, it's like you see something very interesting, you know, that isn't at scalpers prices, that somewhat attainable, that not everyone appreciates but you do.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that kind of shows up along 2023 to reinvigorate some excitement. Otherwise, it feels a little tired as well. A lot of it feels like reissues or, you know, tapping into nostalgia. And I think all the big brands have kind of already done it. That they are scraping the bottom of the barrel already to try and find more. So kind of looking for more new stuff. And of course, hoping that the trend of watches getting a little bit smaller would continue. I'm glad to say that the prices aren't as bad as they were in 2020, 2021. It's still bad, true, but it's getting better. But I still don't think it's, for those of you who are just starting, right, I actually feel for you, because it's a horrible time to start, you know. I wish you did 2-3 years ago when it was somewhat before the hype all started. Right now we're just recovering, you know. For the moment, that's where I am as well with
But on that note, in terms of pricing, right, it's like, what's your outlook on that? Because from what I see, that it will never be affordable anymore, right? So it will never be where it will be. And I think as for us, we started collecting when it was somewhat affordable. And we started to build our collection up to a decent point, and then like, oh, everything else is like, you already have the standard piece. And the
price out.
The price out. The next thing you want is like the haute horology and everything, right? Which is super far-fetched in terms of that huge leap of jump, right? So what can the watch industry do to fill in any gaps or anything? Or what would you hope for the watch industry to create for you, to give you some sense of excitement?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna put another spoiler alert and all that. I think that's why the idea of perhaps if Swatch does a bit more of that may not be a bad thing, because you feel less guilty about getting into something cheaper, but into a brand that you normally would not, and it's a bit more playful. Maybe that would be a great way to get more people involved. But having said that, I think we are at a place where it's a little bit tricky, because I like a lot of what the micro brands are doing, because there's a lot of great designs coming up, right? But I've also reached this point in my watch journey where you're trying to feel a little bit more responsible as well about what you're buying, and if you know that you won't be able, no one else is able to appreciate it, and if one day you want to let it go, right, you're being kind of irresponsible, getting something no one wants. I think that's also a bit of a ideological debate that I'm having with myself at the moment. So I feel that, to come back to your question, I reckon if there was more accessible ways to go into the hobby, which more people would appreciate as well, it's never a bad thing, because you want to share that with more people. But other than that, I think the reissues are getting a little bit tired. I kind of want to see more new stuff, but then again, I have to admit, as an enthusiast so deep into it, I'm probably niche. I'm not mainstream.
Agreed.
But go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, I just have to say, like, because all those Moonswatch kind of projects are they're very entry level. But it's not really an upgrade path for us.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like being where we are now, like having the collections that we have now, like James said, like when you're looking at the next step, it's a huge jump to go from basically stainless steel, plain metal, sportsy luxury watches into haute horlogerie, right? Like if you're talking about AP, Patek, VC, let's not even talk about the
Indies.
Yeah, the Indies are a whole other level. There is nothing much filling in the gaps in between, and I don't see a clear upgrade path. And for me, at least, like one nice thing for my personal watch collecting philosophy is I only buy what I personally like and intend to keep. So I don't care at all about resale value. I really couldn't care if a watch that I bought for 20,000 is now worth 5, because it's still a watch that I like, and I'm not gonna sell it. So I've sold 3 watches out of my entire collection in all the time I've been in this hobby, and that was only to friends at the price that I bought them for.
That's cool. I think the trigger that made me think a lot more about this, and I was actually in the same camp as you were, but some of you may know I'm actually in the midst of moving out of the country for a job, right?
Yeah.
And you come to realize that I can't really bring all of this with me, and it forces the hand of consolidation about the idea that I didn't used to think that I would want to sell any of this, but then leaving it behind for months and a year just feels like an outright shame, right? And you kind of wish it moves on to someone else already. And if none of the friends want to get it, then it's like you have to move it into the market. And that's when you realize, like, wait a minute, no one really wants this. And that becomes a bit of a problem. But it's one of those steps along the journey that was more a consequence of where my life was taking me. So I'm not sure. I mean, James, you've moved already abroad, right? So I'm wondering if that has been a thing that's bothered you.
Yes, I mean, for sure, because like my collection is split into two places right now. Right, Malaysia and Singapore. And I think the collection has grown to a certain point as well that the numbers sort of doesn't make sense really, right? At least if of me trying to be responsible. I mean, if I have unlimited funds, I'll keep everything. Right, I would want to keep everything for sentimental reasons and also the love that I have for the watches. But as a responsible human being, that's something that you start thinking about, right? You only wear one watch a day, and you try to rotate as much as you can, and you start realizing that, oh, actually this piece, I haven't really worn it for so long,
that's
right? I mean, I do have sentimental reason for it, but then it's like, then you start thinking as well, does this sentimental reasons actually matters, right? So that is sort of a debate I have for myself. So I don't have an answer for it, to be honest, because I'm me being a greedy human being, I try to get the best of everything. I try to keep it as I'll try to tell myself that, oh, even though I don't wear it, it's still a good piece to view whenever I get back home and so on. So I don't have an answer for you, but I struggle with that as well, for sure.
Definitely.
As Marshall once, like a wise man Marshall once said, right? If it doesn't hurt, you're not an actual watch collector, right? So
Like, I mean,
you may have wanted to say something to that, though.
First of all, I don't think Marshall enjoys pain, because if he did, he would be here. But also, I definitely get what you mean, because there are watches in my collection that I haven't worn in ages. And I look at them and I think to myself, would this be better off with someone else who would wear it and appreciate it? Like, wouldn't that be better for the hobby as a whole? Rather than me hoarding all this, oh, my precious. Like, keeping them all to myself. It doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, I've kept most of them anyway. So again, I don't have an answer. It's so contradictory, the things that I say and the things that I do. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I've ended up with the solution of keeping it, and then one day if I really fall out of love with it, then I'll let it go. That's my plan, at least.
I think the solution here is to make a lot more money to keep everything. That's one way to look at it.
That's true. And on that point, we've always propagated the idea of being responsible about this, right? So
increased income inequality.
So your
philosophy of
spoiler alert again.
Right. So okay, let's take it the other way, right? So what? Let's say the sky is the limit. What do you hope to see from like the watch brands and so on for this year?
Like, if the sky was the limit, what would I get? Like, what would I hope a brand would release so that I could get it? MBNF doing more crazy things. I just love MBNF. They are my favorite indie brand. They are like, if you talk about grails, that's my grail. Like the, HM5 Space Pirate.
The separate link, is it? The links that goes like that.
I don't remember the links. I just remember like it's a huge bulb in the center and it's like 4 little bulbs. Turbine, 2-time telling. That is my favorite watch by far. If I could murder someone for it, I would. Unfortunately, I haven't found a victim yet. So if you'd like to volunteer yourself, please let me know. But that MBNF just doing crazy stuff like that. I love MBNF because it's so far out there, and it's also so unattainable that I don't feel pain like, oh, I can't get it. It's so close. No, it's so fucking far away that I'm just like, oh, that's really cool. I just admire it from afar. So that would be me.
I think for me, it's both. There are two aspects to this. One is an ideological one, and one is I don't really believe in the concept of a grail watch, so I don't really have one in terms of a grail, right? But of course, if we had more independence that made things a lot more accessible for the hand craftsmanship and all that, that would make it a lot more interesting. Because I find that even in the space that a lot of the micro brands that have kind of made it, it doesn't feel as handcrafted anymore. It feels like you're paying for a design over the handcrafted crafting and all that, right? I feel like I want to see more of that because that's where the artisan really gets involved, right? So that's one idea. I think the other one is, of course, I'm hoping for a day where some of the popular mainstream stuff just gets so ubiquitous that you can just get it, right? I feel like there's really no reason for a mass-produced watch to be unattainable. And you kind of think that after millions have come out over the past hype market, it should reach a point of where you could actually think about getting one already, and
Like the
maybe
market
able to
should
get
be saturated, right?
enough to get it, and so
Yeah.
that more people just get to enjoy it rather than go like, oh, if you want this one, you have to wait 2 years, or you know, or you need to spend money. You know, I think that detracts from the whole hobby. So that's an ideological one. I'm hoping for that because then I'd also be able to get stuff that maybe I've ruled out just because of that clause, right? But I'm also hoping to see more craftsmanship coming into the lower market. Even if it's a standard movement, it's okay. It's just something a little bit special. I find that every time a brand like that hits jackpot like Anordain, you know, they will then reach a stage where it's like becomes unattainable again because everyone wants that already. Right? So I think if more of that comes about, it makes it a lot more interesting. That's just a point of view.
I think it's hard because like I think both of those are kind of contrary in a sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
you know what I
they
mean?
are.
Because
Supply demand.
supply
Yeah.
demand, like,
Yeah.
and also one is like when you handcraft something, you release small batches.
Yes, correct.
And then when they hit the jackpot, they want to go big. It ends up being more industrialized, more
Correct.
commercialized,
Correct.
and less handwork is involved
Yes,
in
agree,
it. And
agree.
it's such a fine.
I don't think
balance.
anyone has nailed that, to be
No.
honest. No one has. And that's just the way the world works. So it's two very opposing ideals. So I'm okay for the pendulum to swing either way, just as long as it goes into one direction. And
Yep.
at the end of the day, I think the goal here is as long as more people can enjoy it, I think it's the best thing for the community.
Yep.
But how it gets there, I'm not really fixated about it. Yeah.
Because gatekeeping is a big problem.
Yeah.
Financial gatekeeping as well as snob
Yeah.
gatekeeping,
Yes.
both ways.
Correct.
On that note, then why don't we talk about in terms of what would you change in terms of like the whole mass watch owners or watch community at the moment, right?
Right.
I would include like I would say I don't know what you call us like serious watch enthusiasts versus non-casual watch lovers and so on. What would you change, or what are your pet peeves that you wish that you could eliminate at the moment?
I can think of a simple one. I mean, it's simple in theory.
Yeah.
People who would stop indulging in the predatory watch pricing strategies. Like this whole scheme of like, oh, if you want to buy this watch, you got to have a record of buying watches with us. You got to buy 5 watches before you can buy this one.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to see people not, I don't know, like just stop allowing this to go on. Because the reason these practices work is because people agree to it.
Yes. Correct.
And I would like to see that stop.
Yeah.
That would be my ideal.
And to add on to that, right, I don't actually, to be fair, I don't blame ADs that does it because I think it's a pure business move and it makes sense for them, right?
Yeah.
The one that I blame is that there's two person, right? That's controllable, right?
Yeah.
One, the brand.
Yeah.
The brand could do something about it, right?
Because-
The brand could make it boutique only, or the brand could strip their AD privilege. And
Because
so on,
they
right?
know it happens.
Yes.
And they let it happen.
Yes. Correct.
Right. So the brand is the one that can do something about it. And the second, like people always complain, oh, grey dealers are the evil ones. I don't blame the grey dealers.
I don't.
No.
I blame the buyers,
The
right?
buyers.
Right,
Buyers.
because the buyers are the one that sets the market. The grader can list it,
Yeah,
but if you
and
buy
any
it,
price they want.
you
Yeah.
create the pricing.
agreed.
Right.
Correct.
So on that I agree as well.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm always focused more on the brand because at the end of the day, if you think of any brand that's going to make it, right, the customer interaction is really key. You know, you have people out there aspiring to own something that you're making, right? Shouldn't you be trying to make a connection to them than ignoring or rather favoring those that just transact and do more in the background, right? Because I think at the end of the day, the more loyal customers you get that truly appreciate it, it's that word of mouth that goes about that's very powerful, especially in a niche community and industry, right? You really want people talking good about your brand.
Yep.
And the less people are doing that, or the more negative stigma is attached to you, right? At some point, it's going to bite you. You just don't know it yet. It just feels very comfortable right now,
Yep.
but it will bite you at some point. And I think they are riding that wave for as long as they can. But I have this feeling that it's already starting to happen. It's just they are not doing enough to stop it.
Right.
So I'm still hopeful. It's a bit of a utopia I'm talking about here, but it's one of those things that I hope the brands step in a bit more to get involved in.
I hope that's the case too, but to be honest, realistically, I think like bad press equals any press equals good press.
And this is all capitalism at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, it is.
So
It is.
it is what it is. So
Right.
I mean, as James has said multiple times, supply and demand.
yeah,
If there is demand,
yeah,
it's gonna go on,
yes, correct.
and there is no incentive for the companies to increase supply,
No, correct.
because all this hype, the fact that we're talking about it, is news for them, is press for them,
Yes.
is people being aware of this, and what incentive do they have to increase the supply and dilute the value
Correct.
of their own market, right?
That's true. But I think that take the point of what Omega did with their Snoopy as well. Right? I think the fact that they went to the effort of trying to understand the people that want to buy it, it's not just a track record, it's like you really, really wanted it, right? Only then do they move you up the list. I think that's a powerful signal that you send, that you kind of want to know that the customer is really into the piece before you get it. I think that's a lot more powerful than just a money unlock thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which comes back to the point that you need the boutique. I mean, you need the brand to take control via boutiques only,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Because like, so far as to my knowledge at least, I don't think you can get a Snoopy from AD.
Yeah.
And Omega does a. I'm not sure if it's thorough, but they at least did a test
Yeah.
or a questionnaire or something to determine whether you are
Truly a fan,
Yeah,
yeah.
truly a fan of it, and
Yeah.
then you'll be eligible to purchase it, right?
So I do want to say sorry because that is admirable, because I do agree, like we need more of these kind of watches to be in the hands of actual enthusiasts. Isn't that gatekeeping though?
It is.
Right.
In a way, it is. It is.
Right? That, like, just because for example, we
Yeah.
love Speedmasters, we enjoy the history, blah blah blah. Why does that make us more deserving of a Snoopy than someone on the street who sees it and, oh, that's really cool, I want one? Why do we deserve that more than they do?
Although I'll rebut on that particular point to say that if you are that man on street, right,
Right.
and you see it, you really want one, and then you then find out that I just need to be more knowledgeable about it and be able to express my interest, is that you pass the gate very quickly anyway, and it's not just a case of me flashing up my card, right?
Right.
It becomes a case of you wanting to know more, because the gatekeeping is more about enthusiasm, which is something everyone can acquire, versus a sales track record, a purchasing track
Right.
record, or a net wealth basis that
Fair.
you're going at, right? So I find that sort of gatekeeping ideologically really isn't a problem. It's a bit like studying for a simple test that's actually passable.
True.
And friends will be happy to help you pass that test
true.
as well, right?
True.
As long as they know that you're sincere about wanting to pass the test. Yeah.
Especially with the internet nowadays.
Yes, correct.
It's the intention instead,
It's the,
right?
it's the intention, yeah.
Right. So I think let's close this off with one more topic. I think
Yeah.
you talk about in terms of the value and everything like that. What are your thoughts in terms of more brands are coming into the certified pre-owned program? Right. Rolex did it. AP I heard is coming up next, and more brands are trying to get a piece of the pie as well. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's good actually, because I think the brands are not as, oh god, what's the word? They aren't as vicious in the secondary market, I think, and also with a lot of brands right now, there's a lot of fear about fakes, replicas, because that is becoming so prevalent in the industry right now,
Yeah.
and fakes are also getting so good
Yeah.
that it's becoming more and more difficult to discern without disassembling
Yes.
things, which is obviously not feasible for every transaction.
Yeah.
So if you have the confidence of buying from a brand that is saying this is certified by us, I think that's a good bit of a peace of mind to have. Of course, you can also see it as a bit predatory because they are looking at the secondary market like, we can make money there.
Yeah.
Right, at the end of the day, that's what it is. So I still think it's a good program if it could be expanded. They could have more control over prices, so you would reduce scalping and all that.
Correct.
But also, at the same time, like if you're the one selling your own Rolex and you know that you could sell it for more on the secondary market versus selling it back to Rolex,
Yeah.
why would you sell it back to Rolex, right?
That's true.
So
I like the idea of more brands allowing people to be owners to be part of it. Meaning, let's say you buy something off the market, right, and you're not sure, and you're able to send it back for a fee, of course, to get it certified. And even if it's not, and they found out it's fake and all that, you just return it because you don't know, right? You don't know what you've gotten, right? And of course, there's the risk of how you handle stolen goods and all of that. But I find that peace of mind is so powerful, especially if you're buying pre-owned vintage, neo vintage, that you just want the original manufacturer to give it a bill of health for a
Yep.
year or two, right? And if that's a service that you can get offered, I don't think it's a bad thing because it just improves the experience. You know, it's like you got a watch off the flea market and you go like, hey, this is cool, and you bring it back to, let's say, Longines, and you go like, yep, this actually came from there. I don't mind you paying me this much. I give you this certificate. It just makes it so much cooler that you found that. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the market will react and will then have to adjust after that based on how the dynamics of pricing and all that work. But I'm all for additional peace of mind and getting more customers being part of the certification journey. I think that's just a rich experience.
Right.
I think Omega's done it for a long time, right? The extract from the archives. They've had around for a while, I think.
Yeah, they have that. I think Longines does it as well.
Longines and then JLC?
Patek as well.
Patek as well, yeah.
A few of them do it. I think that's a nice way of doing it. I'm not so much for the Rolex certified pre-owned, only because I don't think it was a brand that needed it. But I think the other brands can afford to do that, especially those with a long track record, long history, right? And that's the benefit to them, because if they've got a strong archive, that's just power to them.
Yep.
But I think I echo on that as well. I think Rolex had an opportunity to solve all this actually. And naively, I thought they would. When I first heard about the certified pre-owned program, I thought, all right, you can actually buy vintage pieces in peace right now. But then you start looking at the fine print and they say, oh, you can only sell pieces that were bought from the Rolex store or Rolex AD. So if you buy it from a grey dealer or somewhere else, you can't bring it back to the certified pre-owned program. So
that defeats the whole purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Rolex do better, but as usual, don't expect much. So
we don't expect. Honestly, we are not expecting anything already at this stage. We are jaded, folks.
It's very low.
Bar's very low at the moment.
All right, I think that's probably going to be a good way to conclude this episode. Once again, thank you so much, Casey and Woody, for joining this episode. And
happy to be here with Parasite.
If you do want to see more on Casey, more of Casey and Woody, drop in the comments. I think he would be happy to come back because John, like part of Casey and John is currently MIA, so he's a little bit lonely at the moment. So,
In my case, I'm already a parasite, so it doesn't matter. I'm still going to cling on even when you all say no.
Yes, correct. Whether or not anyone wants you around, right?
Correct.
All right.
Life's so good.
All right, that's a good way to end it. Thanks everyone for watching.